Imagine this. You're sitting at the family dinner table. Your plate full but your voice ignored. Laughter surrounds you as everyone celebrates your siblings' achievements. But when you finally speak up about the platform you've been quietly building to help struggling parents find jobs, they laugh. Seconds later, your father gets a call from his boss asking to speak to you. What he says next? It changes everything. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. Hit the like button and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We love hearing from all corners of the world. Now let's jump into the story. The smell of baked rosemary chicken floated through the air, warm and familiar. It was Sunday evening at the Harland house, the same way it had been for years. The large wooden table was dressed in its usual checkered cloth, and the family had all gathered, laughter already filling the room before dinner was even served. Leona sat at the far end of the table, quietly placing a napkin on her lap. Her plate was full, but she hadn't touched a bite. Her father, Mr. Harland, stood near the head of the table, waving his fork like a conductor as he spoke. "You should have seen Darren in his new office," he boomed proudly. "They've given him his own team. At 24, that's the reward of staying focused." Darren, her younger brother, gave a casual shrug, pretending not to care, but the grin on his face gave him away. The room broke into more laughter and claps, and he leaned back in his chair, soaking in the praise. Next came Noelle, Leona's sister. She pulled out her phone to show pictures of floral centerpieces. "I'm thinking blush pink and ivory for the wedding," she said, excitement bubbling in her voice. "The venue already said they can match it with the table runners." Everyone leaned in. Even Leona's mother, who hardly spoke during dinner, gave a soft, "That sounds lovely, dear." For a moment, the whole table hummed with conversation. Leona looked around, taking it all in. Then, just as the noise began to quiet, her mother turned to her. "So, Leona, what have you been working on these days, sweetie?" Leona felt the air change. All eyes turned to her. She cleared her throat. "I've been building a platform called Bridgehome. It connects single parents with flexible remote jobs, so they can work from home while caring for their kids." Short silence fell. Then a small chuckle came from Darren. "So, like a hobby site?" Noelle let out a laugh too. "Oh, Leona and her little projects," she said. "You always come up with the most random ideas. Remember when you tried to sell painted rocks online?" Her father sighed, placing his knife and fork down. "Leona, we've talked about this. If you had just gone into accounting or law like we suggested, you'd have a stable career by now. You're wasting your time with these side things." Leona looked down at her plate. She felt the same familiar twist in her stomach she always felt during these conversations. They didn't see it. They didn't see her. What they didn't know, what they refused to understand, was that she had been teaching herself everything from scratch. She'd watched coding tutorials every night after her job at the bookstore. She'd reached out to organizations, gathered data, built a basic site with her own hands. She'd already helped 37 single parents find legitimate online work. Some were earning enough to stay off welfare, but none of that mattered to them, because there was no salary, no office, no nameplate on a door. She gave a weak smile and stabbed a piece of broccoli with her fork. The conversation moved on, back to wedding planning and Darren's new company car. Leona stopped trying to follow along. She just sat there, quietly chewing, her thoughts louder than the voices around her. After dinner, as usual, Leona was the one who cleared the table and started on the dishes. She didn't mind. The warm water, the soft clinking of plates, it gave her space to think. From the living room, she could hear her father's voice rumble as he answered a phone call. "Yes, Mr. Kellen, good evening. Just having dinner with the family." Leona scrubbed a plate slowly. She didn't pay much attention until his voice suddenly dropped. "Oh. Well, yes, she's here. You want to speak with her?" Her hand stopped. She turned slightly, soap dripping from her fingers. A moment later, her father stepped into the kitchen, phone in hand. His face looked oddly serious. "It's my boss," he said. He asked to speak with you. By name." Leona stared at him. "Me?" He nodded slowly, almost like he didn't believe it himself. He said, "It's important." She wiped her hands on a towel, heart thudding in her chest, and took the phone. "Hello?" she said, voice cautious. What followed would change everything. But at that moment, with the phone pressed to her ear, Leona didn't know what was coming. All she knew was that, for the first time in a long while, someone had asked for her. Not as an afterthought, not out of obligation, but directly, by name. And somehow, that made her feel just a little more seen. Leona held the phone with both hands, her fingers still slightly damp from dishwater. Her heart beat fast, loud in her ears. She could feel her father's eyes on her, but her focus was on the voice now coming through the line. "Hello, is this Leona Harland?" The voice said smoothly, calmly. "Yes." "Speaking," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "This is Jordan Kellen, Regional Director at Westbridge Manufacturing. I believe you're the founder of something called Bridgehome?" Leona blinked. "Yes, that's my project." There was a short pause. Then Mr. Kellen continued. "One of our former employees, Alicia Morales, recently shared your website with us. She found a remote bookkeeping job through your platform after being laid off from one of our warehouses. She told us your site helped her avoid losing her apartment. She called it a lifeline." Leona didn't know what to say. Her throat tightened. I'm glad she found help," she said softly. "Well, she couldn't stop praising what you've built. And after looking into it myself, I can see why. You've created something that matters, Miss Harland. I'd love to speak with you more about what you're doing, maybe even talk about how we might support or partner with you." For a moment, Leona forgot she was standing in her family's kitchen, dishes piled behind her, her father watching in disbelief. "You really built Bridgehome yourself?" Mr. Kellen asked. "No investors? No team?" "I built it from scratch," she replied. "Taught myself coding, reached out to nonprofits, built a simple database. It's still growing, but it's working." "Well," he said, his tone warm, "then I'm speaking to a true problem solver. We need more people like you." Leona felt her cheeks flush. She thanked him, promised to follow up by email, and said goodbye. As she handed the phone back to her father, her hands trembled slightly. Not from fear, but from the weight of being seen. Her father didn't move. He just stood there, eyes locked on hers. "You built that?" he asked, voice quieter now. Leona nodded. "Yes, I did." A long pause passed between them, the kind of silence that says more than words. Then Mr. Harland slowly took the phone and walked back toward the living room without saying anything else. Leona stood still for a moment, then turned back to the sink. The soapy water had gone cool. As she began rinsing the next plate, the sounds from the living room faded. The television was off. The conversation had stopped. Even her brother and sister had gone quiet. When she stepped back into the dining room, the air felt different. Heavy, uncertain. Noelle was fiddling with the edge of the tablecloth. Darren stared down at his empty plate. Her mother was frozen, mid-sip of her tea, as if she didn't know what to say. Leona sat down again, carefully folding her napkin, just as she had done earlier. But this time, no one was laughing. No one was boasting or teasing. Finally, her father returned to the table. He didn't sit right away. He looked at Leona like he was seeing her for the first time. "Mr. Kellen couldn't believe you weren't doing this as your full-time job," he said slowly. "He called you. What did he say? A builder of second chances." The word sat heavy in the room. Darren's voice broke the silence. "Wait, like, it's a real thing? You built a website that helped people get jobs?" Leona nodded. "I started it a year ago. I've been helping people find remote work, especially single parents. People who need flexibility but don't have resources. It's not fancy, but it's working." Noelle looked at her, eyes wide. "I had no idea." "No one asked," Leona said gently. Her mother opened her mouth like she was going to say something, but no words came. Her father sat down, slower than before, as if the weight of something new had settled on his shoulders. "I just thought you were wasting time," he said, barely above a whisper. Leona looked at him, her voice calm. I know. There was no anger in her tone, no bitterness, just truth. Her father rubbed his forehead. I was wrong, he said, almost to himself. Leona didn't respond. She didn't need to. In that moment, something shifted in the room. Not all at once, but a crack had formed in the wall that had separated her from the rest of the family for so long. And through that crack, the truth had finally slipped in. She wasn't lazy. She wasn't lost. She wasn't failing. She was building something. Quietly. Carefully. And now, they were starting to see it. Later that night, as the house settled and the lights dimmed, Leona sat by her window, laptop open, replying to messages from job seekers on Bridgehome. The glow of the screen lit up her face as a small smile played on her lips. It had taken a long time to be noticed, a long time to be heard. But finally, someone had listened. And tomorrow, the real conversation would begin. The next morning was quieter than usual in the Harland house. The usual clinking of cups and sound of news radio from the kitchen didn't come. Even the family dog didn't bark at the mail truck like he usually did. Leona sat at the small desk, in her bedroom, her fingers moving over the keyboard. The screen was filled with messages, some from single parents asking for help finding jobs, others from volunteers offering to assist with Bridgehome. Every message made her heart beat a little faster, not from stress but purpose. A soft knock came at the door. She turned, surprised. Come in, she said. The door creaked open. It was her father. He held a mug of coffee in one hand, looking unsure of himself, like a man stepping into unfamiliar territory. I thought you could use this, he said, setting it gently on her desk. I added sugar, like you used to take it when you were little. Leona blinked. Thank you, he didn't leave right away. Instead, he glanced around her room, the whiteboard full of notes, the books stacked neatly, the open browser tabs on her laptop showing spreadsheets and job listings. He sat down slowly on the edge of her bed. For a few moments, neither of them said anything. Then he finally spoke. I called Mr. Kellen again this morning. Leona's fingers froze on the keyboard. He said you were the kind of person who doesn't wait for permission to lead. Said he's never seen someone make so much impact without a budget, a team, or a big company behind them. She turned toward him fully, unsure what to say. Her father looked down at his hands. Leona, I owe you an apology. She waited, heart quiet but alert. Not just for last night, he continued. For every time I doubted you. For every dinner where I talked over you. For every time I asked what you were doing and didn't really want to hear the answer. She swallowed hard. I judged your work by old rules, he said. Rules that said a person's value comes from a title or a paycheck or a business card. She sat back, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't want to disappoint you. You didn't, he said, shaking his head. You amazed me. Leona looked away, blinking quickly. I always thought success looked a certain way, he said. But what you've built, it's real, it's helping people. It's giving hope where there was none. That's more than I ever did in 30 years on the job. She turned back to him. I didn't do it for recognition. I just wanted to make something that mattered. And you have, he said simply. The door creaked again. This time it was Noelle peeking in. Am I interrupting? No, Leona said, straightening. Noelle stepped inside, holding her phone. I looked up Bridgehome after dinner. I saw the testimonials. I had no idea. Leona gave a small smile. Most people don't. Noelle sat on the floor next to the bed, cross-legged like they used to when they were kids. One woman said, she went from nearly losing her home to supporting her family without needing daycare. That's huge. Leona nodded. It is. Darren appeared in the hallway, leaning against the doorframe. So you really taught yourself coding? Like, the whole thing? Leona nodded again. YouTube videos, online courses, trial and error, a lot of late nights. Darren scratched the back of his neck. That's kind of awesome. There was a pause. Then he added, I complain when Excel freezes. You built an entire platform. A soft laugh escaped her lips. The first real one in days. Her father stood up. You were working right in front of us and we just didn't see it. Leona looked at each of them, her voice calm. You saw something unfinished and called it nothing. But just because something doesn't look complete doesn't mean it's not growing. Noelle's eyes glistened. Darren looked down, unsure of what to say. Leona continued. I wasn't asking for praise, I just wanted space to build. To be taken seriously, even when the pieces weren't all put together yet. Her father placed a hand on her shoulder. And you deserved that. You still do. The moment held. No loud apologies, no dramatic hugs, just understanding finally beginning to settle in. Later that day, while Leona was reviewing another round of job applications, her email pinged. It was from a community group interested in partnering with Bridgehome for local job fairs. She smiled to herself. The work was just beginning, but it was no longer invisible. This wasn't just a project anymore. It was a movement. And the people, who had once doubted her, were finally watching with new eyes. Not as critics, but as witnesses. For the first time, they weren't speaking over her. They were listening. The morning sun spilled softly through Leona's window, warming her desk, as the computer hummed to life. She was already typing replies to new job seekers, single parents reaching out to Bridgehome in hopes of finding something stable, something real. Her coffee sat half-finished, forgotten in the rhythm of her work. Just then, a quiet knock came. At the door. Come in, she called without looking up. Her father stepped inside, slower this time, carrying another cup of coffee. He looked less like the stern man she'd grown up with and more like someone trying to understand. I brought this, he said, setting the mug down. No sugar this time, I remembered. Leona looked at him, surprised but touched. Thanks. He lingered by the desk, hands in his pockets. I was thinking about what you said yesterday, he began, about how we judged your work before it even had a chance. Leona gave a small nod, waiting. I spoke to Mr. Kellen again, he continued. He couldn't stop talking about you, said he's never met someone who could build something with that much impact, and no resources. He said, and I quote, Leona doesn't wait for a green light. She builds her own road. She blinked, taken aback by the words. I guess I just always thought life was about stability. Her father went on. Find a job, get a paycheck, stick with it. That's what I did. I worked hard, but I never built anything like what you're doing. You're giving people a second chance on people we used to overlook. Leona's voice was soft. I didn't do it to prove anything. I just saw a problem and tried to help. And you did, he said. You're helping more than you know. He sat on the edge of her bed again, just like the morning before. The air between them was gentler now, less like a wall and more like a bridge. I owe you more than an apology, Leona, he said. I owe you my respect. She looked at him, emotions rising slowly like a tide. You thought I was wasting time, she said. He nodded, ashamed. I was wrong. You were investing your time in something meaningful, something bigger than all of us. Her throat tightened. She swallowed the lump building there. I didn't want to disappoint you. You didn't disappoint me, he said. You surpassed me. You've built something that restores dignity to people. That's real leadership. Her eyes filled with tears. Not because she needed approval, but because the person she had wanted to understand her the most finally did. A soft knock came from the hallway. It was Darren this time. Hey, he said awkwardly. I was wondering, could I help? With Bridgehome, I mean. Maybe with the accounting stuff? I've got some extra time after work. Leona looked at him, surprised, but grateful. Yeah, I'd like that. And I've got a friend at the community center, Noelle added, stepping up behind him. She helps young moms with housing. I bet she'd love to connect with you. Leona smiled at them both. Let's set something up. It wasn't about paychecks or applause anymore. It wasn't about proving her worth. It was about building something that made a difference, and now her family wanted to be part of it. 2 weeks later, Leona stood in a small community hall surrounded by folding chairs and smiling faces. A job fair was underway, Bridgehome's first public event. Posters hung on the walls. Tables were filled with laptops, flyers, and job listings. A woman in her early 30s approached, holding a toddler on her hip. "Are you the one who runs Bridgehome?" she asked. Leona smiled. "Yes, that's me." "I just wanted to say thank you," the woman said. "I found a data entry job last week. I don't have to leave my daughter with strangers anymore. That means the world to me." Leona's heart swelled. "I'm so glad," she said sincerely. "Let me know if you ever need anything." As the woman walked away, Leona caught sight of her father near the door, handing out brochures and answering questions. Noelle was chatting with a young couple, and Darren was helping set up a display screen. It was quiet recognition, not loud, not flashy, but real. Later that evening, back at home, Leona sat at the kitchen table sipping tea. Her father joined her, taking the seat beside her. "You've changed the way I see success," he said. Leona looked at him. "How so?" "I used to think it meant climbing a ladder, but now I see. Sometimes success is about building a bridge, especially for people who can't climb yet." She smiled. It was the best compliment she'd ever received, not because it was perfect, but because it was honest. Sometimes respect doesn't come with trophies or titles. Sometimes it comes with a mug of coffee and the words, "I see you now." And for Leona, that was more than enough.